Welcome everyone to the Whitman Finance Committee meeting. Today is Tuesday, January 12th, 2021. It's 7 o'clock. We are meeting virtually on the Zoom platform. Thank you to Whitman Hanson Cable Access and John Galvin specifically for hosting our meeting tonight. Just to go over the agenda that was emailed in advance, we have meeting minutes outstanding for December 15th, 2020, January 5th, 2021, just 2 meeting minutes. The reserve fund stands at $38,775.60. The public forum is temporarily suspended due to the COVID limitations. If anybody from the public wants to send some information or ask a question to the Whitman FinCom, you can send me an email at randerson@whitman/ma.gov or call my home phone 781-447-4366. So under new business, we have a reserve fund transfer to act on that was held over from last week. We were to talk about the special town meeting and the forced main project review. Under old business, we do have the subcommittee reports, and also is the annual town report. We do have a communication from Laurie O'Brien regarding that annual town report and the due date. And the town administrator will not be tuning in. And the accountant, I don't think will be tuning in either for updates. So upcoming meetings, we are posted as of today for next week, which is January 19th. That's the only meeting that's posted. We're still maybe now have a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen since the distraction of a special town meeting seemed to be something that's going to get held off. So welcome, Rosemary. We're at 100% here for attendance. And we'll start it out, I guess, under new business by taking a look at the reserve fund transfer that we held over from last week. Does everybody have a copy of the information?
I have to find it.
Okay, it's dated January 4th, 2021. The amount requested is $1,454.40. And the amount requested will be used for a salary for recording secretary to the Board of Selectmen. So under the expenditure explanation, it says, unable to predict the number of meetings the board will hold during the year. Fiscal 21 has seen an increase in the number of meetings held due to COVID issues, the new town administrator search and interview process, etc., as well as an increase in executive sessions. So it's signed by Dan Salvucci, and again, it was held over from the meeting last week. I'll entertain, go ahead, Al.
Just a question, Rick. The employees asking us for the money, or Dan Salvucci asking us for the money?
Well, it needed a signature, and
Okay.
because Lisa was not in the office last week,
Yeah.
Dan is able to sign as an officer of the town of Whitman.
Right.
So
Are these like overtime hours, or who's your direct report to? The selectmen?
So this is a recording secretary. This
Right.
is, she takes the meeting minutes for the Board of Selectmen.
Correct.
So there is an inordinate amount of meetings associated with
Sure.
the last few months.
Yeah.
Some of it's COVID related, but more it's just kind of an unusual circumstance where we're hiring a new town administrator, and we're also did interviews for a new veterans agent. So there's, like I said, the explanation was pretty specific about what the additional meetings were all about. So basically, it's just to fund that line, the shortfall in that line associated with the inordinate amount of meetings that the
Right. Well, who's actually requesting it? Is it the town employee, or is it the selectmen?
The one who initiated the request for the reserve fund transfer is the person that's responsible for the budget, which is the administrative assistant to the Board of Selectmen, Laurie O'Brien.
Would you think?
That's where I got this from today.
Would you think it'd be wise if the Board of Selectmen requested that?
I don't really see that it would make a difference, Al.
I'd
No?
like to make a motion that we table this until we get an answer of whether or not the Board of Selectmen has seen this. I mean, she's reporting directly to the Board of Selectmen. Why wouldn't the Board of Selectmen know that someone that works directly underneath them has a shortfall in their line item?
Well, I'm sure they're aware.
I have a question.
Go
ahead, Rosemary.
Positive are two different things, Rick.
Right. Well, I think we've ventured into Board of Selectmen controlling people's budgets. They're a policy board, and it's usually the town administrator that would do something like that. So that would be Lisa, or that would be the new town administrator. I'm sure if Miss O'Brien sent this, Lisa's aware of it. This isn't unusual, and I'm wondering all of a sudden why we're strangely deciding, and we did this with Mary Beth Carter. I've never seen anything like it, where we tried to divert her department over to the selectmen. I don't understand what's going on, but I want us to watch that. Those are their departments, and we really don't run them.
Yeah. So, and just, just the nature of a request for a transfer from the reserve fund doesn't involve the Board of Selectmen. It involves the Finance Committee. So I think the Finance Committee has gotten all of the information it really needs to make a decision on this. I really don't find that there's a need to table it, but we'll certainly listen to your reasoning, Dave.
All right, my
Dave,
motion
you're asking to table the,
Yeah, my motion's on the table is to table this until we get further information from the interim town administrator or the incoming town administrator.
okay, so the interim town administrator is well aware that the request is here. I'm sitting at her desk today with the piece of paper in my hand. We're talking about the need to supplement this line item. It is not like a huge issue, the line item is depleted because of an inordinate amount of meetings. So we have a motion on the floor. Does anybody wish to second it?
I'll second it, Rick.
Okay, further discussion. So a motion is on the table to table this. We have held it over as we're supposed to from last week's meeting. I would suggest the board take action so that the line doesn't deplete. Further discussion.
I'll just add to that and just say, well, it would be great to have further discussion with the person who brought that forth to this committee, was here at this committee, so we can discuss it with her. She's not here.
Yeah, okay. So again, I don't think that this, go ahead, Rosemary.
Do we feel as if, I don't see, we know that they have had more meetings. We know that they're doing more. I don't understand what's going on here. We know that this has occurred. We know we've done interviews. Have we increased that budget? Did we increase that budget to include that? Or we just rolled their budget over? Because we can kind of look at how we budgeted. Did we budget that in, knowing that we were going to look for a new town administrator? I don't believe we did. So this is a predictable thing. So I'm very curious of I'm very confused by what's going on. This is reasonable.
It's also COVID related too.
That's true. That is true. That if it is some COVID things, that it should be part of the CARES Act, and that is
Absolutely.
true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Okay, go ahead, John Newton.
If I recall correctly, when we first received the request, it was forwarded by the acting town administrator or interim town administrator,
You're absolutely right.
came without a signature.
Yes,
Now, I raised this at the last meeting. I expected that she should have signed off on the request, and it shouldn't have come through, as has been said, from the employee. It should have come through the interim town administrator, signed off as a request that had her okay with it.
Thank you, John.
John, yeah, just to answer the question, it absolutely did. It was forwarded from the town administrator last week. The problem with the form was that it didn't have because the interim town administrator was in quarantine. She wasn't in town hall. So the form was not fillable by a computer. It's just so you know, it's a triplicate form. It has to be filled out, in handwriting. It can't be electronically filed. So Lisa forwarded the document. As you recall, it had blank fields because it wasn't fillable from the computer. So the town administrator is definitely aware, and the town administrator, the interim town administrator, is the one who initiated the form. She was unable to sign it because she was not physically at town hall. So I went there today to retrieve the copy, and the selectman, because he was in the town hall last Friday, was able to sign the document. So I could tell you then, now we not only have the interim town administrator, the department head, but also a selectman who is wholly aware that this is something that is an unpaid bill and it's a line item that needs funding. So I find it somewhat useless to delay action on this request from the transfer from the reserve fund. And is it the only way that this line item is going to get funded?
So Rick, you're saying
Rosemary.
that one selectman has notified all the other selectmen? How do we know that?
Okay, I'm gonna go back to what Al said. We can still do this and collect CARES Act if it can be, like, if it's eligible for CARES Act, we can go in and do that. But the fact of the matter is, we are asking, selectmen are a policy board. Why would they have to know that? There's something wrong here, that we keep asking why selectmen don't know that something's off.
Go ahead, Dave. You care to enlighten us?
Absolutely. I hope I do it every meeting. The town administrator, the interim town administrator, the assistant town administrator all work on behest of the Board of Selectmen. So you're on mute, but I'm not sure if you wanted to add to that. So why wouldn't it be sensible that the interim town administrator, assistant town administrator notify the Board of Selectmen that their budget is in need of a reserve fund transfer.
So it's not
Additionally,
their budget, it's a line item for the recording secretary. Dave.
Yeah,
which
it's
is within their-
$1,000. It's micromanagement at its height.
So, okay,
Talking
I'm
about-
gonna move the question only
It's a
to act
department.
on the motion that's on the floor. We
Wait,
have a mo-
I have another comment. The reserve fund
We're gonna
transfer.
move
that
the
we had-
question, Dave. Dave,
Yeah.
there'll be time for discussion. There's plenty of time for, we have some other agenda items we have to take care of tonight.
That's
If it
fine.
is the will of this committee to table this, I'd like to get a vote. If it's the will of the committee to move forward, would like to get through your motion.
Go ahead.
So we have a motion and a second on the table to table this.
Second,
Request.
second,
We'll go to a vote. John?
Yes.
John Noon?
Yes.
Kathleen?
No,
Al?
yes.
Dave?
I'd like to add to my
Dave,
vote.
you're being asked to vote.
Yes, and I'm giving you my vote. If you
Okay.
can calm
Chuck?
down, I'll get to it.
Chuck?
You
Chuck?
come,
No.
you can't pass me over when you call on me. You call me and I'm.
I heard your answer was yes, Dave.
No. You need
Your
to.
answer was yes, the table.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
I didn't give an answer.
I heard you say yes.
I didn't
You
say
said
yes.
Dave.
No, I didn't. I said, listen carefully, everyone. Everyone listen carefully. I would like to add to my answer, and that's when I got cut off. So let me repeat. I would like to add to my answer is that the reserve fund transfer did not have a reason for the necessity. The form that we received was incomplete. So my vote to table this is yes.
Are you done now?
I am done now, Rick. Thanks.
Chuck?
I vote no.
Ralph?
Yes.
Rosemary?
You mute.
You,
Yes.
You're voting yes to table it,
I'm sorry, no to table it, sorry.
and I vote no. Samantha, can you give me a count?
Sorry. I think it's 50-50. If I
No, there's
counted,
9 of us.
hold on.
Rosemary, you said yes and no. Come on,
No, it's still 5-4.
let's go. Come on.
That's how you got
5-4 to
10.
table. 5-4 to table. 5-4 to table.
All right,
Okay,
so
okay. The request for a transfer to the reserve fund is tabled to next week. Okay, next on the agenda is the special town meeting, force main project review. So in the light of the information that was forwarded today from the interim town administrator, the special town meeting has now been indefinitely postponed. So I think the need to review the warrant, which was the purpose of putting the special town meeting under new business, is probably not needed at this point. Hopefully it is delayed. Personally, I would like to say I don't agree with the, I hope the Board of Selectmen reconsiders tabling indefinitely this special town meeting. I think for two reasons. One is that we are exposing the town to the liability should that the complete failure of this system actually transpire. I mean, we've been told about the city of Brockton is pretty concerned about the condition of this equipment. And the other thing is that the construction schedule, I think the Board of Commissioners, the sewer commissioners were very clear that they were looking forward to getting this project out to bid in the spring and looking at the, favorable conditions of the bidding environment. So, like I said, I hope we can bring this back up. I hope that the special town meeting is not delayed for a long time, but obviously their concerns are with the meeting and, the COVID-19. So understand fully. So anybody else, anything on special town meeting? Okay, moving past that, we're under old business subcommittee reports. Building Facilities Capital Expenditure Committee, Dave.
Yep. So at our last meeting, we had Commissioner Cleary and Superintendent Smith at our meeting, who presented some information, their information on the sewer force main proposed project. Where do I start? So the draft language in the warrant included a sum of money. When we asked what that sum of money was, they felt that this was about a they thought it was about a $16 million project. They felt very comfortable with that number. And from what the interim town administrator said, the reason why the not to exceed, the reason why the not to exceed language remained in the draft instead of a number of 16 million was that the concern was that if the bidding came, if town meeting approved the funding and the bids came in over 16 million, that then the water and sewer would have to go back to town meeting for additional funds. When asked about that scenario, the superintendent mentioned that if that was the case, if that scenario would have happened and they went to town meeting a second time to get additional funds, and that was then rejected, they would not pursue the project at all. So the project would not be fun, would not go forward. Some committee members had concerns that the project seemed, the number of 16 million seemed underestimated. The way they came up with this 16 million was through their contractor, who is Environmental Partners. that provided tables. According to superintendent and commissioner, that they did an evaluation of past projects, and that's how they came up with 16 million. 16 million is actually not 100% forced sewer main related. They anticipate being very close to a water line that under a street, so they anticipate having to do some upgrade while they're in the area, do upgrades underneath that street since it's opened up anyways. Our committee had voted unanimous to approve that with the amended language of 16 million. As chairman, I'm going to go back to the committee and ask them if it's their pleasure to maybe invite the water and sewer vendor, environmental partners, to come in and provide us with a more detailed explanation of the project. There's a lot of documents involved in this project. One, I would encourage everyone to go look at is online, the Whitman webpage. If you go into their search and search sewer line project, there's a draft document in there that describes different options. According to Superintendent Smith, that draft document has actually been finalized, and he's working on getting that to the right person to have that uploaded to the town website. John Galvin was in attendance. I'm not sure if John, if you wanted to add anything to that at all.
The only thing I would add would be that they intended to, in order to pay for the project, the first year, the payment would be about $1.2 million. And they were intending to raise the sewer rates only by about $3 per user, which is about a 66% increase to the sewer rates. So it was a significant impact, but it's something that needs to be done, and there's really no other options. I mean, that's really the only way to pay for it. The numbers seemed right. Their number of 3 cents would basically increase their sewer revenues by that amount. So
yeah, it was a $3 increase per to the cubic foot charge of sewer.
Okay, thank you, Dave and John. Rosemary.
In the Collins report, the first one, they had recommended a funding. We're not taking a loan out. We're just going to be paying.
no, they're bonding it. They would
Yeah,
bond
they're
it.
bonding it. Right.
Yeah.
So with the bond, it's still going to be the 1.2.
It's a $16 million bond at 2%.
Yep. I think that's what they thought it close. I think it was closer to 15 when I got to go back and look, but okay. At 1.2.
Okay,
And
so yeah,
water and the water pipe. This is being done in Brockton. Is it our water pipe or Brockton's water pipe that you're talking
It's
about?
our sewer line that runs from the pumping station, which is close to the intersection of
14, right?
14, 18.
Yep.
Runs all the way down that road and then takes a left at some point and crosses into Algiers and the wooded area into the town of Brockton, city of Brockton.
Yeah, so the water line is our water line or Brockton's
sewer
water
line.
line?
It's a sewer line.
Oh, I thought you said that they'd have to do secondary work with the
Oh.
water line?
That's in Whitman property, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
okay, so yeah, the meeting, I did get a chance to watch the Capital Committee, and the reason why I invited the members of the Whitman Finance Committee to participate is just because of the timeline, and to, eliminate the need for the Water Sewer Department and the commissioners to meet with both the Capital Committee and the Finance Committee. So I think that the way we have it set up is good. I think, the Building Facilities Capital Expenditure Committee is doing a good job reviewing this particular project. It's a significant amount of money, but some of the parts of it that affect Finance Committee recommendations would be that the water commissioners are pretty adamant that they weren't going to be using any of the money that they have to bond the entire amount because the need to do additional work is always there. So there's $4 million. Dave, what was the total in the
4.1 million.
4.1
Yeah.
that's going to be held just for, a contingency for other issues that come up. So the $16 million is being projected at some point to be bonded, and the project, again, it's important that the project move forward. So thank you, Dave and John, for a review. At some point, now we have a little bit more time. We could get a better overview from the Capital Committee before the Finance Committee makes a recommendation for town meeting. Any other questions? Chuck?
I just want to kind of echo your sentiment. If everybody remembers, we had a couple of ruptures over the last few years, which were very costly to fix. So I think it's important that the project does move along on a good timeline.
Yeah, and Dennis Smith did say, we were lucky in those particular breaks that they happened where they happened. If ruptures happen in a different place, the economic fallout will be much more significant than what we experienced with those two breaks. So, all right, thank you very much. Anybody else? Thank you once again. We will move on to subcommittee reports. Regional Agreement Amendment Committee, no meetings on the schedule. Middle School Building Committee, John?
So
Anything
we
in the
did meet yesterday. It was a pretty short meeting. We were basically updated that the MSBA had one of the things, let me get it called up here, sorry. One of the things that had to be filed was, all right, hold on, give me a second, sorry. Was the enrollment certification form to the MSBA. Basically what that does is the MSBA will basically determine what they think the enrollment's going to be for the school, and then make a determination of how much per pupil they're going to pay. So the MSBA determined that the school can be funded for about, I think it was like 590 students, in which Whitman Hanson thinks is not enough. So there is some discussion that's going to happen between Whitman Hanson and MSBA, trying to get them to change their mind, because it's a significant amount of money. If MSBA says they'll pay for 590 student school and we want 630, they only pay for 590. We have to pay the difference. So that discussion is going to be ongoing. I believe the school, along with Bob Curran, are going to be supplying some numbers to the MSBA to try to get them to change their allocation, I guess is the word. But from what I understand, that happening is probably slim and none. They do it their way, and that's the way they do it. So that will happen in the next couple of weeks. I think we meet again February. Dave, what is it? February 6th, I think we're meeting again.
Yeah, I don't have the date right in front of me.
Yeah, a couple of weeks we're meeting again, 3 weeks. So that's a significant issue that needs to get worked out, because it could affect a lot of money on what MSBA pays and what Whitman has to pay.
Okay, Kathleen.
Okay, so John, I have a question for you, because I have some enrollment figures right now from the school department unrelated to this building project. But right now, the Whitman Middle School has a total of 582 students, and it is 6 through 8. Is there any discussion, and I know this is more of a school committee question than anything, but is there any discussion about moving the 5th grade up to the middle school to justify creating a larger projected enrollment?
I mean, I know the school committee, I know the superintendent and Mr. Farrow had that discussion. They mentioned it a little bit in our meeting. It's still, they would still have to calculate whatever that would be for 5 through 8. And I'm sure it would still be, their numbers are based on their formula. And they have some formula that includes birth rates and how many women are in the town. It's a real crazy formula.
You mean they being MSBA?
MSBA, yeah. And their formula, whatever it is, that's the way they do it. And that's what they came up with. And whatever they come up with is what they do. So, Whitman Hanson's going to try to change their mind to get them to fund a bigger school. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's going to happen, in my opinion, but we'll see.
Okay. Dave, anything you want to add to that
No.
discussion? Nope. Okay. Anybody else? Questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Quick question.
Oh, go ahead, Kathleen.
Is the middle school building committee meeting by Zoom, and are those Zoom meetings accessible to the public? Not for participation, but just to watch?
The first meeting we met in person. Yesterday we did meet on Zoom, and it is up on the WHCA website. The YouTube page. The YouTube page.
Contemporaneously, so you can watch it as it's happening.
No, it was not live.
No.
It was
So-
recorded. It's like our meeting. It gets recorded and gets posted. So it's just like the FinCom meeting right now. We are not live. And that one was. The first one we did was live, but the subsequent ones will not be live.
Any way that can be changed?
Um,
Who's the chair?
Fred Small.
Okay.
Yeah, while we're on the topic, Rick, can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Al.
As far as finance committee and the town website, none of us are listed on the website as finance committee. They have old members on there. You're still in there with Dave, but the rest of us are not on there.
Okay, I'll see if I can get that straightened out, Al.
It's over 2 years now, so
Yeah, I'd say it'd be time for a fresh update.
just a thought,
Good point. Thank you, Al.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Then we move on to Whitman Hanson Regional School District Assessment. Kathleen, any meetings or anything with the district?
As I understand it, there's the plan, the superintendent plans to make an initial budget presentation sometime in early February, because he, similar to Tom Hickey's explanation last week, he needs the Chapter 70 monies that will be published on January 20th. So there's nothing ongoing. I don't know that they even have a budget item on tomorrow night's agenda. I'll check. If there is, I will attend the meeting. If not, I won't attend the meeting. So there's nothing firm, nothing
Okay.
concrete right now.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Yep.
Non-mandated busing, again, we're going to wait till we have our joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen to see what the appetite is for having a discussion and moving into the pay to ride discussion. The audit funding status is the audit funding was part of this special town meeting that was going to take place at the end of the month. Now, obviously, if the special town meeting is postponed indefinitely, the funding for that audit is also going to be postponed indefinitely until at least the meeting in May, annual town meeting. So nothing further on that. Annual town report, we did get a communication from Laurie O'Brien, the administrative assistant, and it just says we've begun the process of coordinating the 2020 annual town report for the town of Whitman. In order to meet the goals established for printing and distribution, please submit your 2020 annual town report to this office by the end of business on Thursday, February 25th. So the draft was submitted. Anybody want to amend anything, we do have some time, or I can entertain a motion to accept it as it is written and forward it to the administrative assistant. Kathleen?
I think the content was fine, Rick, but there were some grammatical errors, like a comma misplaced. I can't think of the specifics, but as I read through, I said it needs to be cleaned up a little bit. Other than that, I thought it was good.
Okay, so if anybody wants to, Kathleen, if you want to just
Yep.
put an eye on it and forward it to me, and then I'll forward it to the committee, and then we'll work on that at our next meeting for
Fair
final
enough.
approval.
Will do.
Thank you. All right. And so budget second meetings. So a couple of things. Last week, we did talk a little bit about taking a look now that we almost have all of departments submitted their budget, with the exception of selectmen. But I would suggest that we're not going to see a selectmen's budget until we get the particulars from the contract that the town has signed with the new town administrator. So until we get an opportunity to meet with selectmen and that budget, I'd say we have a little bit of time. What I'd like to do, just if I could quickly, if John, could you put up the Article 2 dated January 5th? I think it's our most recent copy. And we could just do, there's 12 pages. All I want to do is just simply touch on the total for each department, percentage-wise. And if we could just kind of think about where we want to talk to departments. For instance, perhaps we could talk to the fire department about the fact that the CARES Act has now been extended into the end of next year, and how that could impact the fire budget, if at all. I mean, it's just another question, I think, that the committee can use. So if we take a look at the budget for Article 2, and we take a look at under line 19 for total selectmen, right now, John, what's the date on this one? Because it doesn't match the one I have.
Because I changed that number. Well,
Oh,
wait a minute,
change it.
because I know that's the number. The number's 140.
Okay. So the total department, total selectmen is 4.8% increased from last year. So moving on to the next page for.
Just quickly, John, how do you know that that's the number?
Because I asked, because the contract was signed yesterday, so it was a public document.
And it was put out that we have.
No, I asked for it. I asked for information on it.
Could you could you have those things sent to the committee as a whole?
I didn't get anything in writing. All I got is I asked a question and it was answered. I
Thank you,
asked
John.
I
Thank you,
asked how
John.
much, I asked how much the contract was signed for, and I was
Okay.
told the number.
Great job, John.
Can you scroll back up? Because I
Sorry.
wasn't, please.
It was in the budget for 145. It was agreed to be 140.
Thank you.
Is that what you're showing us?
No, wait, I put it back to what it was because Rick, it was different than what Rick had.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, so when I talk about Article 2, I like to leave off where we left off. That's all, John.
Yeah, well, this is my document. So if you want to ask me to share my document, then there are going to be some changes that I make based on calculations and figures that I make. So, we've run into this before where I'm sharing a document that I use as a work document. And if I make changes to it, I'm trying to make those edits and not make them public, but I got in trouble before by showing information that I worked on that shouldn't have been shown. So,
We all.
Yeah.
if
No
you're going to
worries.
ask me to show, I'm going to show what I have. And if I make a
John?
change like that, I'll tell you,
That's
Good job,
fine.
John.
I think we're fine with it. All I simply want to do is just go to the total for each department.
Right.
So total selectmen, 4.8%. Scrolling to the treasurer collector, if you can, I got 3.9% increase, right? Scrolling toward technology, I have a 27.7% increase. Scrolling to the town clerk, I have a 4.6% increase. Is that what you have there?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, and scrolling towards registrars, small budget, but 8.7%. Planning board, another small budget, but 27.3%. So the total government is 5.7% total. The fire department is 5.3% increase over last year, which puts public safety at 6.3% over last year. The health department, after line 209, is a 7.6% increase. While we're near there, it might be worth noting that the Council on Aging is actually reduced by 1.9%. The library is at 2.9%, which is pretty close to the 2.5. Recreation is in 13.5% increased over last year.
For what?
And that's pretty much, all of the department summaries. So the reason why I wanted to just kind of just breeze through that, John, and I appreciate you putting up your documents and you can send that down, but just to talk a little bit about the Budget Override Evaluation Committee's recommendations. Now, these were what's referred to as the Madden, it really came out of the Madden report. But if you look at the summary, and I'm just going to read a couple of things, just again, to prepare us for what we need to do to get this budget in some kind of a state to present recommendations to the town meeting. So the purpose of the charge of the Budget Override Evaluation Committee was to determine if a Proposition 2.5 override would be necessary to maintain services and properly address the needs of our community for fiscal 21 and beyond. So these are the consultant findings from Mr. John Madden's report. So the summary, it says, if the town of Whitman continues on its current path, an override as soon as fiscal 21 is imminent. As stated earlier, revenues cannot keep pace with projected budget requests. The town has already supplemented its budget with free cash, and this should be a harbinger of things to come. By reducing the departmental increases to those percentages recommended in this report, the budget increase from fiscal year 20 to 21 would be reduced by nearly $550,000. So some of these numbers are obviously going to be different, but I think what I'm looking for is somewhat of the concept of this entire report and the recommendations that came out of the Budget Override Committee. So some of the other things that were the recommendations was the ambulance account. We did that. Dissolve or modify the existing fund is effective July 1st. Create an ambulance receipt fund for the purpose of purchasing an ambulance every 3 years, as well as 3 sets of firefighters turnout gear every 3 years. So then the motor vehicle fine account, the recommendation and the motion that was passed unanimously was that that fine account be discontinued. Then the sewer water indirect costs, the next recommendation was to support the recommendation that town begin capturing indirect costs assessed in the sewer water enterprise fund to offset the total to be leveled in Article 2. And we did that as well. So one of the other recommendations in the operating budget section was to support the recommendation that the town limit its overall budget increase from year to year to 2.5%, and that education appropriations increase not more than 5% assessment. So that motion carried unanimously. So there is some wiggle room there. The other thing regarding free cash, with acceptance of recommendations made by Mr. Madden, free cash would now be available as a foundation for the town's capital improvement program, as outlined in the Collins report. So the motion that passed unanimously was to support the recommendation to limit free cash use to one-time expenditures and not use free cash for reoccurring budget expenditures. And then, some of the other recommendations regarding strategic plan, and the other one was the capital improvement plan. So So again, these, just a review of where the budget override evaluation committee ended its recommendations and the adoption of those into our, basically our blueprint for formulating this budget. So one of the things that the Article 2 has is a revenue summary at the end. John, have you worked on your revenue summary, the one that you had put together last year at all? Or? We do have the one from Ken.
Yeah, no, because I agree wholeheartedly with what Ken has.
Okay, so Ken's just kind of looking at the last page. The ambulance receipts is the ambulance receipts fund, right? I think maybe that's a little, confusing the way it's written, because it's not really what the ambulance receipts were. It's really what's available in the fund. It's
No,
301,000.
no longer an ambulance receipts fund. That's left over from last year, that 300,000. So that'll go to free cash next year. So that's not
Well,
an available spending.
We're retaining money in ambulance receipt funds for the purchase of an ambulance. Still.
We have moved ambulance, the ambulance now goes into our local receipts. So right now, if you want, I'll throw it up here.
Yeah, if you put up the last page of the revenue summary, if you can.
Yeah. So what you're talking about is this ambulance
Right.
receipts right here.
Ambulance receipts.
That's actually last year's ambulance, what we did not spend from last year.
Right.
So that no longer is that because it went unspent last year, it will end up going into free cash. That's not a number that is money that's available to us to spend. What the change was is, instead of having an ambulance fund, we then moved the ambulance into anticipated local receipts. So you can see right here, this 814.9 is what is estimated for local receipts for the ambulance fund. And we can be able to see how, see how that's going along by the actuals, but it's no longer, it's now a forecasted local receipt. So it's an estimate. So that money's in there. I mean, that's the big difference from last year. We did this. We not only did we do this, but we also had the fund. That was the double dip we had as we transitioned from one to the other. That now is no longer a revenue source for us. It will end up in free cash eventually, but it's not something that we can now spend.
So the recommendation, just going back to the recommendation from the Budget Override Evaluation Committee, was specifically, and you moved to recommend the current reserve for appropriation ambulance receipt account be discontinued and to begin reserving $160,000 annually for ambulance purchase each year, and the balance of revenue be made available to the general fund, as you said.
Right.
After further discussion, it was decided to change the vote to read, instead of the $160,000, a sum of money to be determined by the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee. So
that'll be
year,
that'll be a standalone article, as it was last year, for $160,000 to go towards an ambulance purchase. It's going to be allocated, and we did that last year. We also added, I think, $100,000 on top of that to repair a ladder truck or something in that article.
Right.
So
all I'm saying is, this year, because we purchased an ambulance with the CARES Act funds, the need to put $160,000 into the purchase of an ambulance is not necessary. That's all I'm saying.
No,
Can't
because
do
we have
that. You
another.
can't do that.
We have another ambulance that we have to purchase next year.
We don't have to purchase it, he said, and that's why we were able to do it. We had to fix a chassis because we wouldn't been allowed to purchase an ambulance if we had already had it planned. So because it was different than just purchasing it, we were able to do it as a CARES Act. If that's what I remember correctly, we can go back and review that. But I think it's actually fixing the other one.
It's just right. It's just one thing, I wanted to touch base with Ken on what it says currently available. So in that, you also see that free cash is listed at $1,058,526. Now, again, correct me if I'm wrong, that's what we're going to be using for capital expenditures. Is that correct, Dave? the recommendation of the Building Facilities and Capital Expenditure Committee
I
would
didn't
be
hear
to
that.
recommend articles for capital expenditures utilizing free cash.
Always, yes.
Yeah, okay. One-time expenses.
Yeah.
Okay, so-
Unless they're recommending a different funding source. It's,
Right.
you know,
Yep, right. Okay, so again, all of this is just more or less just a kind of an overview of where we are and where we need to pick up the discussion when we finally meet with the last department. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I just wanted to just throw a little caution here. The Madden report was great, and all the numbers that he calculated for last year were great, but there was a big issue. He didn't estimate revenues based on a COVID world. So all of the numbers that he used for estimates for revenue didn't include anything to do with COVID. So all of that, you know, what he's saying, 500,000, overrides, all of that stuff, all of that calculations does not include anything for COVID revenue and how that affects our revenue projections. You know, where we're at right now with revenue projections, and I've said this 3 meetings in a row now, we're in a hole $748,000. That's just for Article 2. We can say everybody can get 2.5%. You make everybody we'll go straight Madden, you're still going to be $400,000 in deficit, maybe more. So to say that we can go and honor Madden's recommendations for every department and everybody can get 2.5 and the schools can get 5, it's not realistic because we don't have the revenues to support it. Now, hopefully the new town administrator, who is a financial whiz, can come in and work with Ken and evaluate the revenue estimates, and maybe he finds another $200,000 or $300,000 that we can add to the revenue estimates. That still puts us $400,000 or $500,000 in a deficit, and that's just for Article 2. That doesn't do anything for capital expenditures. The articles right now, based on the Collins report, are about $2.5 million worth of capital expenditures for next year. We have $1 million in free cash, and obviously we wouldn't use all of that either. So, I agree with you 100%. We need to look really hard at this Article 2, but not under the understanding that we can fund everything at Madden's recommendations, with the understanding that we need to look at what we have for revenue and how do we make that balance out, because it has to be zero, and I've looked at this a lot. It's not pretty. It can be done. We can balance this without an override, but there's a lot of cuts that have to be made, and we'll need to all work on that together and make the decisions.
Good point, John. Yep. Okay. Like I said, this is a discussion we have several months to make. So Al first and then Rosemary.
Yeah, real quick, just John, do we know the total amount of money that we've gotten for COVID-19 relief from the government?
I'm pretty sure Rick was talking about that today from the email that Ken had sent him.
Right.
I don't know how what did you say? There was like,
He didn't say how much he spent. He said how much we have left, 512.
512. So I don't know if somebody knows what the total amount was we had, but I want to say it was, I don't want to guess.
Couple $100,000, a couple of $1 million, or?
No, I want to say we've probably spent we've received about 900,000, I think, maybe, and still have about 400 left. I don't know for sure. I don't know the total.
So we don't know. We don't know where that money's dispersed yet, Rick. I don't know. I'm just asking.
So the Board of Selectmen voted last night to limit any future expenditures from CARES Act to salary and PPE. And there will be no more expenditures for capitals. There will be no more capital expenditures is what the recommendation is from the Board of Selectmen is, with the remainder of the CARES Act. We are fortunate that we, unlike other towns, didn't spend the entire thing, all of the money that was available.
Right.
So we do have 512,000, I believe was the number that Ken said is in the balance.
But how do we find out where the original money went to and where it went to? And are we expending money that, not saying that we don't need to spend the money, where did the money go?
Sure. Well, we can get a report. Sure. You want to get a report? Sure.
No, because we get all departments looking for money going forward, correct me if I'm wrong. that need the money. Board of Health needs the money. Other departments need the money. I'm just kind of
Right.
concerned where we spent the money, who allocated that money, and where do we see the spending and where the money went. That's all.
Sure. I think I don't think it's beyond the realm of responsibility for the Board of Selectmen to prepare and provide us with the accountant's help, a list of what was spent.
Right. Do you understand why I'm asking that? Because
I do.
if
And I just want you to understand too, that there now is a little bit of a difference in where we're going to spend the remainder. That's all.
right.
So,
That's all. Thank you.
thank you. All right, Rosemary?
So it was just piggybacking on what John said, first things first, I agree. There's things that we have to cut back on, but first things first, let's get everything down, get it to the Madden recommendations, and then see where we are then. And if we can't, then we know where we have, if we know we have to go forward with an override, and we can just put things to the floor. People, I'm not an expert on what people need. They can ask the community, the real boss is, if we can't, we haven't collected enough revenue, we have to find it.
So let's remember too, that this is a fiscal year 22 budget as well, and not to say that there won't be some implications from COVID-19 after July 1st, 2021, but I have to think that we'll be on the road to recovery by then, Dave.
I'd like just to remind everybody that there's some significant, there's a tax increase coming up in November, which is the Community Preservation Act. We have a potential sewer increase if that project is funded through town meeting. We have a potential Whitman Middle School project, which would be an additional raise on taxes, because that would be done outside the levy. The DPW is asking for a town meeting to approve a budget, which would be another borrowing item outside the levy. So when you put all that together, you're talking about pretty significant tax and fee increases to the town. So I just want to keep that in everybody's mind as we discuss the idea of having an override, which again would be another tax increase.
So aren't we rolling some of this forward with debt that was expired? Aren't we rolling some of those expenses forward? I mean, isn't that what the Collins recommendation was about?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
So say Whitman Hanson's debt will expire, then we roll in the next project. So it really doesn't increase the tax base.
Well, yes, it does.
Whitman Hanson, the high school debt doesn't expire until 2027.
And
Yes,
that original debt is only likely half of what the middle school essentially would be.
What I'm saying is there are debts that are expiring and that we can look at it. So that's not the whole picture. That's all I'm saying.
Sure, but if you're equating, I think it's a false equation to say that the expiration of debt is may be equal to the potential increase in taxes. I think
we have to look at all these numbers and make our decision. I think if you're correct that it is more, then we don't move forward. But we still have to look at the numbers. Thank you.
It's a town meeting. I'm trying to tell you right now that
I agree, Dave.
Excuse me, I'll speak, Rick, if you don't mind. I just want to make everyone aware that the expiration of debt is in no way near the value of all these projects in culmination. Thank you.
Yeah, just so you know, the debt service right now forecasted for 2022 is 1.2 million. It's down 84,000 from 2021. So it's 84,000 less next year than it is this year. That's what's in all the debt service, which is, if you look on your Article 2, it's lines 261 A through J.
I think everybody is saying the same thing. I think in one way or another, we are still facing a budget crisis here. I think what's important for this committee to do is convey that information to the budget managers. I've been trying to do that as they come in, but maybe there's a need to have subsequent meetings with budget managers so we can lay out exactly what the challenges are here with this fiscal 22 budget. So go ahead, Dave.
Why can't it be as simple as asking the budget the department heads to change their budgets per the Madden report, which was again, approved by the Board of Selectmen? I mean, what is the whole point of that Madden report if we're not going to follow the recommendations, especially where the Board of Selectmen voted unanimously to follow those recommendations?
I agree. There are extenuating circumstances. There are budgets that are going to increase more than 2.5%, as there are going to be budgets that are submitted that are less than 2.5%. But you're right. There is no reason why we cannot request to the budget managers for this fiscal year to resubmit a budget based on more on the available resources than their requested needs. So like I said, we're all saying the same thing. I think we need to get this information to the Board of Selectmen so that they can also work, in concert with the Finance Committee to get to a level funded budget before town meeting in May. So like I said, the challenge is there. We now know, every week we get another piece of the puzzle, but they're not going together any better than they have been for the last 6 weeks. So that being said, I don't think there's anything else on the meeting agenda unless there's something else somebody wants to bring up under good of the order.
Ralph's birthday today?
Wait a minute, Chuck had this question.
Oh.
Go ahead, Chuck.
I was just curious, with that follow-up email from Dawn last week, were we in any violation of the open meeting laws, and was there a complaint issued?
I can only tell you that I saw Dawn today at Town Hall, and she did say that she mailed a letter that she filed a complaint directly to me. So again, there are things that we need to do, as I told her. There's a lot of challenges that face us. And I don't think it really helps at all for us to be throwing stones at each other, while we're trying to get this work done. So I think the Board of Health had similar issues that Dawn raised with them about not including her in the presentation. But the bottom line is, when the department comes in and has a scheduled budget meeting, if the department has everybody that they're expecting and it's 10 minutes before their scheduled budget meeting, we have never delayed a presentation based on the agenda timeline. So the Board of Health did not indicate that they were waiting for anybody, and so they went into their budget. So I don't have any problem with complaints being filed against me. I actually got a call from the Ethics Commission investigator today regarding the letter that was published in the Express 6 months ago. So for some reason, someone has also filed another complaint regarding an ethics violation on that issue. So am I concerned? I'm not. I think we're doing the right thing. Our focus and our charge here is to do what's in the best interest of the taxpayers of Whitman. And whatever complaints get filed, I think it's really insignificant in the total picture here. So
Yeah,
so we can
I
expect
agree.
more complaints, and
Me too.
we'll answer them as they come, I guess. Dave,
Yeah, I just think it really takes away from what we're trying to get done.
it is a little different, but it's a minor one. Dave,
Yep.
go ahead.
I'd be on the opposite side of that. I think it's always better to err on the side of caution and to make sure things are transparent. And if someone believes that local government is not being transparent, then that should be brought up to everyone and allow them to make their decision.
Sure, I agree 100%.
I have to say that if Rick, one of the most ethical people I know, has
Well, let's
got
not build me
ethics
up that
committee,
much.
any one of us can, anybody can in Whitman, so.
Yeah, well, so like I said, we've got work to do. Let the din of the distractions just echo on behind us as we march forward. Anybody else, anything new, anything that they want to bring up? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make the motion to adjourn.
All right,
Second.
second by Al. John,
Yes.
Yeah.
John Noon,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Al,
Yes, sir.
Dave,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Ralph? Ralph says yes.
My
Rosemary,
son, my son wants to say
Yes.
hi.
I'll say yes.
and I say yes. Hi
Is
to
it
Al,
Ronan?
son. Thank you all for participating.
Hi,
Thanks.
Ronan.